get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Jinsa's Israel at War update. I'm honored, as usual, to be joined by two of Jinsa's Israeli senior fellows. We have IDF Major General Yaakov Amidror, a Jinsa Distinguished Fellow and former National Security Advisor, as well as IDF Major General Yaakov Aish, the Jenny and Julian Josephson, Senior Vice President for Israeli Affairs at Jinsa, and former Head of Operations at the Israeli Chief of Staff. Thank you both for joining us. I think everyone is going to be very interested to hear about events that happened overnight, which included the second ballistic missile attack on Israel from Yemen in this week, as well as the Israeli strikes that happened in Yemen against the Houthis. But we also have developments that have happened in Syria, as well as talk of a potential hostage deal in Gaza. So, General Amador, maybe I could start with you to give us sort of a brief overview of the strategic landscape this week.
The Israel is now busy with the three areas mainly. One is the continuation of the dialogue about the hostages. The rumors which are coming out in the public are that the deal is closed. There are details which hadn't been agreed yet, but it's very close to be agreed. I don't know, and all these rumors are from people that do not have a clue about what's going on in the real negotiations. The fact that the head of the CIA remain in the region and is a good sign, but I really don't know. The second area in which we are very busy is Syria. Our decision to enhance our defensive capacity in the Golan Heights by moving to the east, having control on the tip of the Hermon mountain, in the Syrian side, which is the highest point of the Hermon. It's very important, but we are doing it along the whole line in the Golan Heights, and we probably finish to destroy 80-90% of the military capacity of the Assad army. That if the new rulers in Damascus wants to have these capabilities, they will not have the ability to use it. We destroy the Navy, we destroy the Air Force, the anti-air systems, the missile systems. We neutralize some of the chemical weapon storages, and so on. And I think it's very significant because it's first of all, it's very strong hint about our ability, and it is saying to the new regime in Damascus, war is not an option for you. If you want to have a war with Israel, you have to build something from scratch, or almost from scratch. And the third area in which we are very busy now is Yemen. We are getting from Yemen from time to time missiles and drones. Just tonight they waked me up at 2:30 at night, ruining my sleeping hours, and drones from time to time. But not less important, they are blocking the Bab el-Mandeb, and Israeli export-import cannot be done through it's around 20% of our trade. It's not something that we cannot live with, but it's a big problem. By the way, the Egyptians are suffering from these consequences more than us, because people are not using anymore the Suez Canal, and for them it's huge. It's very important. So this is the three areas in which we are very active. we are active as well in the West Bank. And the statistic which was published today by the IDF spokesman is very interesting. We see huge decrease in the number of terrorist action in the West Bank, huge decrease, 70% less than the previous year. And he says something about the mood in the West Bank. And the main challenge for us is how to keep it on, not to ignite the area, because if that will be ignited, it will be a huge problem for Israel internationally and so on. And this is why we have huge number of battalions there to be kind of a blanket in recovery. And first time after many, many years in which the Palestinian Authority forces are fighting inside Jenin refugee camp, because they understood that they are losing control. And for them, it might be devastating. They learned the lesson of Syria, and they don't want that a group from within will be strong enough to march into Ramallah. And they did a big operation in Jenin. At the same time, we killed some terrorists by drones in Tulkarem, but it is not contradiction. What we are doing is helping them, and what they are doing is helping us. So this is the areas in which we are very active, and I can say that we are continuing to prepare ourselves for the new administration in Washington. After the inauguration, we will have to consult with the new coming people in Washington about what should be done with Iran. The Iranians now are facing huge, devastating situation. They lost one leg out of the two that they have. They have two legs for their strategy. One is the ring of fire, and the other one is the nuclear. And they wanted to be far away without any confrontation, because the proxies will do the job, and Tehran is 1,500 kilometers away. What happened that they lost the ring, and they are now facing directly Israel in direct confrontation, and they have to decide what to do with the nuclear project when they know that the new administration might be very, very strong about it. So I think that Iran is in the lowest point after so many years of having a clear strategy. They lost at least half of the strategy, if not more, and they have to decide what to do with the third leg, which is with the nuclear, when they're facing new administration. It's not the easy administration that they can imagine. So this is the overall view of the Middle East today. If I have to say something about the last week, look, if you want to understand what happened in this war, remember where it was begin, in the south, in a devastating attack by Hamas, huge failure of the IDF and the intelligence, brutal attack by Hamas, and last week, on this week, at the beginning of the week, you could see the Prime Minister of Israel standing with the Minister of Defense and the Chief of Staff on the Syrian side of the Hermon, looking to Damascus. If you want to understand what happened, look at the two pictures and understand what is the difference between the beginning of the war and the end of the war, which nobody had in his cards, that will ended with the collapse of Assad. And the meaning of it is huge. It means that Hezbollah lost the connection to Iran, and to refill and to rebuild Hezbollah will be almost impossible. And we have to see what will happen in Syria with the Syrian relations with Turkey. Do we see now a new axis built not on the Shiite side of the Arab world, but on the Sunni side of the Middle East? And when Turkey is taking the leadership from Iran, and Syria is becoming part of the Sunni axis, unlike in the past part of the Shiite axis. And that makes Iraq the most important element that will make the difference between the two axes. And now to Aish.
I certainly want to get to both Yemen and Iran, but first maybe on a couple of the other areas of activity that you mentioned. Just quickly on the West Bank, you said that there's been a change in attitude that's led to this reduction in terrorist activity there. Is that due just to IDF and maybe now PA security activity in the territory? Or is it tied to what's going on externally as well? Is it also tied to what we've seen in Gaza or Lebanon, Syria?
No one can. What we did during the last year is huge efforts. We killed hundreds of them, and we arrested almost 10,000. It's very strong actions within the West Bank, and of course the fact that the force which initiated the Hamas is now more busy with his existence and survival is part of what was changed. But I don't know if there is anyone who can say if it is only the results of our very strong and intensive operations almost every night, and what part of it is the fact that Hamas is collapsing and the Iranians are not anymore the strong country that they had been.
General Aish, turning to Syria, as I wanted to ask you, should we expect further Israeli operations targeting more strategic assets inside Syria, or have those operations run their course? Has the IDF hit most of the targets that it wanted to hit?
So the strategic guidance to the IDF is to remove strategic capabilities. When you say strategic capabilities, it could be a chemical weapon, it could be the ability to manufacture it, it could be air defense capabilities, and some other capabilities. Whatever is identified is removed. However, we should be very humble here. I agree with General Amidro that we are about 90%, but still we are talking about another 10% that is still there. And I assume that once they'll be identified, they'll be removed. The strategic goal is to make sure that imminent threat from the Syrian side by this regime or someone else is removed, and it's not going to be allowed. And for that sense, you can see IDF forces not only at the Hermon mountain, at the Syrian side, but also at the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. What is really interesting is something that was published yesterday, that in certain places, Syrians decided to give up and not only not to resist the IDF, but the contrary, to take ammunition depots, to expose them and to deliver it to the IDF, just to show a goodwill of cooperation from their own side. And it seems like they have quite good memories from the years that we were helping them with the medical treatment and many other humanitarian elements during the civil war. But this is about the Syrian sector. But I'd like to go and to add on Judea and Samaria. General Amidor mentioned the significant change. Just from the beginning of this war, only in Judea and Samaria, 800 terrorists were killed in Judea and Samaria. When you think about the number together with another 10,000 that were arrested, it's a huge number. So one of the major reasons for the situation as we see it right now, to include the fact that the Palestinian Authority is allowing itself to operate inside Jenin, is due to what we did in the last year and still doing tonight and every night to make sure that we don't face any surprises from that sector as well. And This is in addition to all the other sectors that the IDF is fighting that I assume that we will talk about, Gaza, we mentioned already Yemen and many other challenges such as Hezbollah. The operation over there is not yet completed. Forces are still active there in exposing and demolishing military infrastructure, and munition of depots, and so on and so forth.
Just sticking with Syria a little while longer, General Aish, could you tell us more about the deployment to the Hermon area? How far into Syria are Israeli forces deployed? Is there a plan for how long they will stay there, or what their operational directives are?
So the guidelines is to be ready to stay there for at least a year. I'm not sure if they are going to stay there for a year. It could be less. It could be more. The prime minister was there together with the defense minister and the chief of the general staff, and this is the exact guidelines. It means that now it's winter in Israel, and to include the Hermon Mountain and the Golan Heights, that all the preparation, the logistics, preparations were made. Take as an example gasoline, the type of gasoline that you are using for tanks and the APCs. It has to be a very specific type of gasoline. So all the preparations were made, and they are on full readiness to stay there, to include all the other elements needed. They are not saving any effort in that sense.
Has there been any Israeli contact, discussion, coordination of its activities with either the regime in Syria, such as it is, or the Turks? Any discussion of the continued presence in the Hermon region, or is this sort of a unilateral activity?
So I'm not sure about any contacts with the regime or Turkey, but with the locals, definitely there was an engagement of the IDF. It has two aspects. One is security, the other is humanitarian. And we saw it in Khadr, which is a village in the Druze village in the north. And we saw it not far from Quneitra, where locals decided to give up some munitions and stuff that was left behind by the Syrian army, but nothing further to report.
It is pretty remarkable seeing videos online in recent days of Syrian Druze saying that they would like to join Israel or become part of Israel. I'm not sure if the authenticity of those videos has been verified, but if it is true, it's quite remarkable.
It is.
You mentioned ongoing activity in Lebanon, General Aish. If you could give us a bit of a sense of what is happening there and the general state of the ceasefire deal and its implementation.
So the period of the implementation is 60 days, and we saw General Kurila coming to visit that sector from the Lebanese side, visiting the Lebanese forces, making sure firsthand that the agreement is implemented, as well as it's going on from the Israeli side. I've mentioned that the forces are not just deployed over there, but they're making sure to complete the mission. I mentioned already the military infrastructure, but when we are talking about what Hezbollah have built on the first, I would say, 2 to 5 miles from the Israeli border, when you are thinking about the tunnels, the depots, the shelters, the HQs, the communication centers, there is a lot of work that has to be done. Not everything was completed yet, to include what was exposed today on the western sector. Another depot, another bunker, another tunnel that was full with the gear of Radwan unit and munition and anti-tank missiles. So they are still working on that. And on the other hand, we can see that the LAF, the Lebanese Armed Forces, are moving to that sector very slowly, very carefully. But it is a case that yet to be seen. I'm not sure if we have seen the last picture yet. You know, with Hezbollah, we are monitoring it very carefully, and we will have to monitor it and to enforce it very carefully in the days and weeks and months to come.
What sort of Hezbollah activity are you seeing? Are there sort of frequent attempts to violate and test the terms of the ceasefire? Is Hezbollah trying to come back south of the Litani, or are they mostly still
So
trying to?
at the beginning, they were trying to check how serious we are and to infiltrate into that area, and they were attacked. In certain cases, they were trying to recover and to use some rocket launchers and to prepare them, and they were attacked. And we are making sure that they're not trying to save anything from that area as it was agreed, and not allowed in to that area as the agreement was signed. So it's going to be a tough period for everyone who is dealing with them in this area, not only us, but mainly the locals, and we will have to enforce it carefully.
If I may add here to what was said by General Aish, I think this is a good example how in the Middle East, the agreement importance is not about the agreement, is how Israel enforcing it. Because might be in very nice words in the agreement. If it's not enforced by Israel, no one will comply. And here what we did from the beginning is to show that we are determined to prevent any violation as we see of the agreement, and that was well understood on the other side. And whenever they try, we don't hesitate. We are immediately reacting to any violation of the agreement. And I think that's a good example, because we might face other agreements in Gaza or in Syria, and we will have to be as determined as we were in this agreement with Hezbollah. I think it's very important. It's kind of shift in the way that Israel is looking at the situation on the ground, and we don't hesitate to go to a strong friction with the other side if there is a violation. If there will be something even more stronger than that, we are ready to take the chance. We take the risk, and it's totally different way of thinking and acting than before the war.
Speaking of Israeli determination to confront the other side, I wanted to move on to Yemen. But first, maybe General Amador, I wanted to ask you, what is the Israeli threat assessment of the Houthis? Are they capable? Are they willing to do more than we have seen? Is it sort of a missile and a drone here or there? How big of a threat are they to Israel?
I think that for the moment, if nothing will be changed, and we might see the Iranians moving part of their efforts to establish a stronger Houthi capabilities, because it's the only one which will remain active, and it's very significant from the Iranian point of view. The problem with the Houthis is that, first of all, it's 2,000 kilometers away. It's longer flight than to Tehran. So from the intelligence point of view, from the ability to react immediately, we don't have it. It's not an area in which we have intelligence in real time, like in Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza. It's totally another situation because of the lengths of the flight and how far it is from Israel. And the Houthis are very flexible. You know, if you go to a rich guy, or a business guy, and you tell him, "I'll cut you from the bank," for him it's the end of his life. If you go to the beggar in the street and you say to him, I'll cut you from the bank, so what? These are the Houthis. So they lost something. It's not an organization or a state in which if they lose the bank, they are losing some. No, they are beggars. And it's far away, and we don't have the means to continue the operation day and night, as we could do in the countries around us and against Hezbollah and Hamas. So we have to understand our limitations, but at the same time, their defense system is not such huge, and we succeeded to hit many targets inside. And if we continue, they will lose the ability to bring any materials into Yemen, because it can be done only through the sea. And if that happens, they will be in a problematic situation. Will they continue to launch missiles here and there? Probably yes. Will they continue to block the Bab el-Mandeb? Probably yes. If the Americans cannot stop them or don't want to stop them, we from far away cannot do it. If the Americans with their carrier beside, they neutralize all the capabilities of Yemen to launch missiles, are in much better position than us to do it, 2,000 kilometers away. So I think here we probably will continue to have this here and there ballistic and drones attacks, but the more that we are free from the operations in Gaza and in Lebanon, we will focus more on our ability to attack Yemen, and it's a good exercise for the operation in Iran.
So speaking of that, but also some of the constraints that General Amador mentioned, General Eich, can you tell us about the operation last night? My understanding is the planes were already in the air when the ballistic missile was launched from Yemen, so it was not a direct response to that launch. But could you also tell us a little bit about the targets that were hit? Because it seems like a wide array of different targets across much of Yemen. You're still on mute, General.
I think the important part is the targets that were not attacked, by the way. And in a second, I'll say a word about that. It took us 2 months to conduct this strike. We were quite patient and busy in the north and elsewhere. And maybe this is one of the reasons. And priority was given to Syria and to other sectors. Having said that, the decision was made to go after their electricity power, and those who are living in Sana'a woke up to darkness in the middle of the night. This is one of the elements. Second element was the harbor plus the oil containers, but also the tugboats that usually are used to direct big ships or vessels into the harbors. All of those were eliminated. So by that, basically, the Air Force did what General Amidor was implying, that they are very close to being paralyzed in their ability to receive goods or shipments into those harbors. I'm afraid that the important part is that not as we have seen in Lebanon or in Gaza, we haven't seen the Air Force or the IDF going after their military leadership or those who are behind the decisions to launch UAVs or drones or ballistic missiles or cruise missiles towards Israel. And I think it's something that has to be considered. And I assume that it's on the table, and it will have to be the next phase if they are not going to be convinced after what we have seen. The second element that was not mentioned is who is behind it, who is motivating them, who is providing them with these capabilities. and we haven't seen anything related to that yet. And the reason is very clear. We discussed already the situation in Syria after the last 3 weeks, and we discussed the situation in Lebanon after the last 3 months. And we didn't have yet the time to discuss the situation in Gaza, but the war in Gaza ended in Jabalia, but moving to other neighborhoods to make sure that they are cleared above and under the ground from terrorists.
Is the lack of decapitation strikes a strategic decision thus far, or is it a reflection of some of the intelligence limitations that General Amador referred to?
I assume that it's a matter of strategic decision, and it will be the next step that we will have to consider over here. Once the decision will be made, resources will be allocated for that mission, I assume.
Is Israel now in sort of a wait and see posture to find out whether there's going to be more Houthi attacks after these latest strikes, or is there more of a campaign plan to continue trying to degrade Houthi capabilities?
I assume that it's a waiting phase. It's a pause, an operational pause. Otherwise, we would have seen another strike, one after the other. So I assume that it's an operational pause to wait and see what they've decided, or their masters in Iran decided, and we will have to take it from there.
I wanted to turn and to discuss Iran directly for a little bit, but then open it up to questions from the audience. So if you do have any questions for Generals Amador and Aish, please feel free to submit them using the Q&A feature in Zoom. If you type out your question, I can then read it out to the generals. But let me ask about Iran. I've heard sort of two different theories here in Washington about Iranian strategic calculus now that it has been so dramatically weakened, and that the air defenses from Damascus to Tehran have basically been wiped out by the Israeli Air Force. And one version of the story is that Iran is now so scared and so vulnerable that it's not going to do anything aggressive, particularly in its nuclear program, because it doesn't want to risk or trigger an Israeli strike. The other narrative is because it is so weak and vulnerable, and General Amador, as you said, much of its ring of fire has been eliminated, and its nuclear program is all that it has left. It has all the more incentive to try to advance that program and maybe get a bomb before anything else could happen to its nuclear program. Do you have a sense of which one of those is more likely?
The short answer is no. I think that the Iranians don't.
I think what we have learned from October 7th is that we have to be very humble and not to try to guess what are the intentions, to evaluate capabilities. And now that the way is paved, operationally speaking, in Iran and elsewhere, and we know exactly what is the strategy of Prime Minister Netanyahu when it comes to Iran, I think the calculus has to be done and the decision has to be made. It's only a matter of timing.
What will the decision be made based on? Where are the Israeli red lines? Because until recently, the Israeli position seemed to be Iran is 2 years away from a nuclear weapon. We have time. They haven't mastered how to build a weapon. Is that still the calculus? Is it still focused on weaponization?
It's not connected at all to the question of how far they are from the bomb, because we cannot wait to the last minute anyhow, and because we don't know exactly how far it is from the bomb, it is almost too late. and everyone understands it. And this is probably the last chance to delay the project. We cannot stop it, but we can delay the project for a few years. And that should be done. Otherwise, all those who are preaching us that it is too early, we will find them ourselves that they will preach to us that it is too late. I know the guys, it is the same guys which are preaching that it is too early, are the same that will preach it that it is too late. We should do it. We will have to wait for the new administration. We have to coordinate it with the Americans. The Americans will have to make a decision where they want to be. They want to be part of it. They want to back us only from above. They want to be second in command. I don't know what will be the role of the Americans. Whatever will be the role of the Americans, the Israelis should do.
Speaking of the new administration, let me point out that Jinsa's Iran task force just released a new report today laying out a strategy for how the new administration should act to prevent a nuclear Iran, led by General Chuck Walden and Ambassador Eric Edelman. It's a pretty substantive and thorough strategy, so I'd commend that to all of you. You can find that on our website. But certainly very much agree with you, General Amador, that I think the opportunity for U.S. and Israeli cooperation to take action against Iran's nuclear program now that it is so weakened is should be the first and foremost option. Let me open it up to our audience. We have a couple of questions, and if you have a question, please feel free to submit it using the Q&A function. The first is regarding the Houthis, and to your point, General Amador, that it's the Egyptians who are suffering so much from Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. Why aren't they participating in the U.S. and European effort to protect shipping? Why are they absent from doing anything against the Houthis?
Look, the Egyptians have very bad memories about fighting in Yemen. They did it in the 60s, and it was almost complete failure of Egypt. And the Egyptians are not ready to fight another Arab state in their position now, almost in bankrupt state. I don't agree with their policy, but I can understand it. And they are not ready to look. Countries should be ready to pay the price for their interests. Egypt is not ready to pay the price. And they count on the Americans. The Americans at the end will do the job.
Speaking of doing the job, between the Houthis in Yemen and Iran's nuclear program, how would you prioritize those two in terms of needing to take action?
No question. You don't have to wait for the end of the question. It's clear that we have to prioritize Iran. But for that, we'll be much better ready than we are today. And the flights to Yemen are, in a way, a good exercise.
Speaking of exercises and training for flying to Iran, if the U.S. doesn't participate in a strike, what would Israel need from the United States to make an Israeli strike as effective as possible?
I think that General Aish have better answers than me, but I think that the first important issue is the oil tanker. We have to get it as early as possible.
I'll join General Amador by saying KC-46 are the high priority for that mission, but I'll draw the attention of our audience to the article published by Mike Makovsky at the Wall Street Journal. There is a list of 13 items over there that are still delayed. Munition, JDAM kits, Hellfire missiles, and many other things that are still missing. But in terms of Iran, definitely it's their fueling capability based on the KC-46s.
Turning slightly away to a topic we didn't cover, we have a question from Terry Gardner, who asks, what does Israeli intelligence see as Turkey's ambitions in light of the changes in Syria?
Look, Turkey is a new member in the game. And no question, the success of Turkey to initiate the attack on Syria, and the fact that they now have their own proxies inside Syria, is the first time in history in which they will have direct contact with Israel on the border through their proxies. It's their decision. Today, it's a good example of Israel should not initiate anything towards Turkey. We have to wait to see what the Turkish intentions are. And I'm not sure that the Turks have a clear idea, because they had been surprised by the success of the rebels. They didn't have a complete picture of what will happen. But today there was the first rumor that might lead to what might happen in the future, is that the Turks wants to have an agreement of about the EEZ with Syria. And remember, they have an agreement with Libya, one of the governments of Libya, and ignoring totally Cyprus and part of Greece islands. And they want to have such an agreement with Syria, and that is a good way to open the door for a cooperation in the Mediterranean with the Syrians. Turkey has huge navy, and that might be the first step towards cooperation based on what looks like civilian issues. But for the long run, I will not be surprised if the Syria will be will be part of the sphere of influence of Turkey. It's going back to history, where the Ottoman Empire was, what they lost in the First World War, what they want to re-achieve, blah, 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 blah. If you want to understand it, think about Putin and his attitude to the loss of USSR when it collapsed. Or in a way, is the same pattern of thinking of Erdogan. We lost in the First World War, and we have to re-innovate ourselves and bring back what we lost. It is very similar to the way of thinking. It's not the same history example, but the same way of thinking of Putin about USSR and the disintegration of the system in the 80s.
Another place where we've seen evidence of Turkey's ambitions is in the northeast of Syria, where they have engaged with some of the rebels in fighting against the Syrian Kurdish forces. Is that something that concerns Israel at all, or it's far enough away from Israel's borders that it doesn't have any implications?
It's very far from Israel's borders, but it's a strong hint for the way of thinking of the Turks. America should be more concerned about it, because these are the Kurds which operated with America fighting ISIS, and here is a test for the Americans how much they're ready to support their supporters. And look, for the Turks, the Kurds are not an issue of sphere of influence. It's about the integration of Turkey. They look at it, if they look at Damascus and Aleppo as part of rebuilding the Ottoman Empire, if not in occupying it, at least in having influence there, with the Kurds, they look at it from the defensive point of view. The Kurds are a threat to the integration of Turkey. They might lead, if they united all of them in Iran, Iraq, Turkey, and Syria, to the disintegration of Turkey. I don't know if it's probably 20% of Turkey is Kurdish area in which the people which are living there are speaking Arabic, not Turkish. They are Kurds which want at least autonomy, if not independent. And for the Turks, all of them, by the way, it's Erdogan and his opposition. It's a nightmare to think that about the possibility of united Kurdish forces trying to build independent Kurdish state. And the most dangerous element within the four elements which are living in Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Syria, the Syrians one are the most dangerous one because of the autonomy that they have, almost independence. The fact that they are very close to the Americans, fighting with them against ISIS and so on and so forth. And it didn't surprise me. I understood immediately that that will be the first step of the Turks, to use the new situation to push the Kurds to the south and to the east. But here is the test for America.
General Aish, we haven't really talked about Gaza. Before we sign off, any updates you want to give us about what's been happening there?
I think the situation in Gaza is quite clear because everything is very much connected to the hostages deal. We'll have to wait and see how things are unfold very soon, according to all kind of publications. But in terms of continue clearing up above and under the ground, eliminating military infrastructure that was left, it is something that we will have to continue in doing in the next year or so. So they are still working on that, allowing the humanitarian aid upgrading the infrastructure to allow it in from Kerem Shalom and from Kisufim and from areas north, south, and the center part of Gaza. And the rest is something that we will have to wait and see.
Well, thank you both, General Aish, General Amajor, for
you.
your insights this evening. Thank you to all those who tuned in to watch. Let me again suggest you check out JINS's newest report on a strategy to prevent a nuclear Iran for the new administration. But thank you all, and have a good evening. Thank you.
You too. Bye.